realized that in that moment, not in that moment, I actually realized it after I had a full-on tantrum. But this is what I want you guys to learn from the full-on tantrum. That when God calls us to steps of obedience, at first, there will be times where you're going to get exactly what you thought you would get, or it's going to work out. It's going to work out. It's going to be better than what you thought it would be. It's like, oh my goodness, it's happening. I'm excited, blah, blah, blah. Then there's going to be, God then trains you to then not be connected to outcome. He trains you to be your validation to come from him. So it's not about whether or not everybody does a parade because you did the right thing. No, it's about you receiving validation because you know God told you to do something and you did it. You may not get the parade. You may not get the round of applause. No one may ever know what you did or did not decide to do. But God understands what he's called you to do. And God knows that you were obedient. And that's what he had to break me from. Because in this, it was almost like when I'm taking a step and I'm doing something that I never thought I would do. You want the parades. You want the instant gratification. You want those things. And God had to break me out of those things. And when that happened, it felt like, well, God, if this didn't work, I didn't get an instant gratification from this, then is this the right direction? Am I being lied to? Are you taking me to where you said you would take me? I started questioning everything. The enemy used that to just go like just put me through a spinning. Like I just was like, God, am I hearing you correctly? Am I hearing you at all? Is this really what you want? And my go-to, family, is running away. Like that is my go-to. If I get uncomfortable and something when it feels like I'm being misled or I feel like I'm being betrayed, whatever, if I am experiencing something that feels like I'm being manipulated in some way, like as if God would manipulate me. But again, that's because of trauma. I want to abandon it. I just don't. I'm like, okay, I'm not letting myself get hurt like this again. And what God was confronting in that time, whether I realized it or not, was that it wasn't, big bad wolf Sam saying, oh, I can leave blah, blah, do all that stuff. No, you're afraid. And it took me being in that moment, having this tantrum because what I wanted did not happen, of course. But it took me seeing myself and having a moment with God. And this is what I want you guys to really come to, is saying, like sitting by yourself, getting in a room, sitting by yourself. I want you to release all of it. I mean, I was crying. I was screaming. I was emotional. I let it all out. I let it all out. And not in a way that I'm yelling at God, but I'm like, God, what are you doing? Like, if this is not you, please reveal yourself to me like you've revealed yourself to me. Hit that holy eject button because I will walk away from it. I don't need this to happen. Like, I'm not connected to this outcome. It could be anything else. Like, I'm good with whatever you want for me. If this isn't it, and that was only because what the step of obedience I took didn't seem like it brought me closer to what I thought God wanted for me, ultimately. It just seemed like I did this and nothing happened. And I'm like, I went against everything I stood for. And now, like, I don't have anything to validate me taking this step. And that lack of validation, that lack of instant gratification really messed with me. And in the moment, I'm like, am I going the wrong way? Am I doing the wrong thing? Like, if I'm doing what God called me to do, shouldn't it work? Shouldn't it happen? Shouldn't it have happened by now? No. Because God, in his wisdom, understands that the version of you that needs instant gratification, the version of you that needs validation for every right step that you need to take, is not the version of you that's going to be able to steward the promise well. Because there's going to be things that you have to do. There's going to be steps that you have to take that you're not going to get a pat on the back every single time. There's not going to be a parade every time you do the right thing. But you know that God is watching, and you know that God is aware of every single movement, every single decision that you make. And that fear of the Lord should keep you in line. That fear of getting out of this alignment should keep you in line. And so God had to teach me that even though I may not seem closer, and it does not appear that something big is coming from my every step of obedience, that I trust him enough and I want to be in alignment enough with him, that it really doesn't matter if it brings me closer to the promise that he gave me. If it keeps me in alignment with him, it doesn't matter what it looks like. Because what I've learned is that the most valuable thing is not the promised land. That when it all falls down and it feels like you're alone and you don't know how the end is going to be made, and you don't know where this road actually leads, you're just blindly being led. You're relinquishing control and you're saying, God, you take the reins. I'm going to be obedient. You take the reins. When it all falls down, what I've learned in those moments is that God is faithful. God is faithful. And at the point of this entire process is for you to learn that he is, to get you to remind yourself of the moments where everybody else left. And the person that you thought never would hurt you. The person that you thought never would betray you, betrayed you. In your childhood, when you trusted people and they decided to go against everything you thought that they would do. This is the moment where you realize that God had never left you. God has never forsaken you. And how dare you put the character of man on the character of God? And what we do is that we get into these moments, and when it all falls down and it feels like nothing is coming together, when it feels like, okay, God, I've taken this step of faith and I'm scared and I'm anxious and I want to go back to my old ways and I want to get it the way I used to get it. And God, of course, the enemy is going to create circumstances and wreak havoc. So you would rather go back to comfortable. I want you to push in and I want you to push through. Because you're being tested. You're being tested. You're having a Job season. You're having Israelites in a wilderness season. You're almost to promised land. And I wish I could tell you it gets easier, but it doesn't. It gets harder. That the closer you get to promised land, it gets harder. That's why you had to go through all this. That's why you had to learn that God was faithful. That's why you had to learn that you could depend on him, that even when it looks like it's not happening, it is happening. That it all happens in the spirit before it ever happens in the natural. You realize that everybody is connected. There are times where I'm feeling promptings in my spirit, and I know, I feel a person, I know. I call them up and like, wow, how'd you know? There's times where I've been on the phone now and my spirit starts to talk. People start to cry. And it's a word that they've been waiting on God for. There's a prompting to give, and I've given. And it's the moment, the millisecond that person needed. I've learned that we're so much more connected than we realize. I've also learned that in this process of being broken, I've been built up, become stronger, become more self-aware. I understand what I'm here to do on some level. I've learned that God's way is greater. I've learned that the version of Christianity that I've learned is lukewarm. It isn't real. That's why it doesn't transform. People say they're a Christian, but their lives look nothing like it. I'm not judging, but it does say test the spirit by the spirit. And that the spirit produces a fruit. And if there is no fruit, you have to question the root. That in the moments where I feel like I'm breaking the most, family, and I've sat down and I've cried out to God, a lot of us avoid those moments. We feel like we can't question God. But David, if you read Psalms, he questioned God. He had those intimate moments with God where he was like, I don't know what you're doing. I have no idea. Like, have you forsaken me? Have you forgotten me? There's moments where he's so angry about what's happening and the people that have hurt him, people that went out of their way. He went out of their way to protect them. And that same person betrayed him. He speaks to God about how angry he is and what he wants to happen to that person. He is so brutally honest about how he feels. But he ends every psalm with praise. Praise about what? Not praise about the moment that has not been worked out, but praise about every other moment God came through. Praise about who God is and who God had shown himself to be by that time in David's life. And it wasn't even just praise about what happened in David's life. He was praising God for the things that he had read God had done. And so sometimes, family, when things are happening in your life and you can't explain it, and you're trying to trust God and this walk seems harder than you thought it would be, I encourage you to get really brutally honest with God. Get alone with him. Get in a room. Get in a closet. Like the other day, y'all, I had to go into my closet. My daughter was here, and I just had to scream and cry out to God. And when I got out that closet, my daughter was like, "What happened to you? Like, you're like a whole different person. Your energy is completely shifted." Because at one point I was stressed and overwhelmed, and I didn't know, and I'm doubtful, and the enemy had really put a lot of seeds of doubt in my head about the things I was believing God for. And it's been a fight. It's been a war. I'm not gonna lie, it's been a war. Because that's how the enemy fights us. It's the what ifs, it's the doubts, it's the shame, it's the condemnation of the things you've done in your past. It can't happen for you. I don't know. It's all those things. He brings up all the insecurities from your childhood on that have gone unresolved. That's what he does. He doesn't fight clean, he fights dirty. But he only has hold in areas where we give him room. People talk about this all the time. The enemy only has certain areas of authority, legal ground, should we say, over you. Those legal ground areas are openings that we have for him. We open up for him, meaning that the enemy can come in areas where you sit. That's why when you see people that they do deliverance ministries, or what do you call it? Exorcisms, whatever you want to call them. When you see those deliverance, it's a door that was open. The door was open usually is from sin, right? Unforgiveness, bitterness, all those things. That's why you have to release those things and really do forgive, because you open a door for the enemy to come in and inhabit you. Because the spirit needs a house. Every spirit needs a house. We're spirits having we're spiritual beings having a human experience. We're spiritual beings, right? And so when you allow that's why it's important for you guys. Like, I'm sorry, y'all. That's why you got to be careful about who you lay down with, who you allow to have access to you. It doesn't even have to be laying down with somebody. It could be who has access to your ear. Who has access to your ear has access to your future. If you allow somebody to talk to you all the time, they're going to influence different thought patterns, whether you realize it or not, based upon the spirits that they're dealing with. So God in this time will eliminate certain people from having that ear space with you because of where they are and where they're going. And you're chosen. You can't walk that path. You can't have that in your ear every day. But we fight that. We resist that. We rebel against it. And we in turn take ourselves out of purpose, take ourselves out of alignment. And I promise you, when you're out of alignment, it's not a pretty place. It's not fulfilling to be out of alignment. And so in these moments, family, when you are struggling and you don't see the purpose and you don't see the promise, and you feel like God is breaking you, he is. But it's not to just break you. He's not cruel. He doesn't have or get satisfaction from harming you. But he understands that the only way to reteach you what pain taught you, because really the patterns that we've developed over time that aren't his patterns are patterns that life has taught us, is ways that we've protected ourselves and guarded ourselves from pain. And so in order for us to reach purpose, we have to unlearn patterns that were dysfunctional, that pain taught us, to protect ourselves. Because the walls that we build up, I know I can speak for me, the walls of Jericho I had up were built from pain. And although those walls protected me, they also kept me from the very things that I wanted, I deeply desired, that I wasn't willing to admit. And why wasn't I willing to admit it? Because then I'd be vulnerable.